The night has a way of leaning closer when you least expect it. Even now, as you listen, as your eyes scan the room, and your breathing slows, there is a sense that something unseen is paying attention. These are not campfire tales meant to vanish with laughter. These are true horror stories, whispered by people who lived through moments where fear became a living thing, moments where reality bent and the darkness felt close enough to touch. But within every one of these stories is something more than terror. There is a lesson hidden in the shadows, a truth revealed only when comfort disappears. Because fear doesn't just frighten us, it exposes us. And tonight, as these 4 scary true horror stories unfold, you'll realize that even in the deepest darkness, something powerful is born inside the human soul. Fear arrives quietly at first. It creeps in as a strange feeling, a tightening in the chest, a sense that something is not right. In one true account from a forgotten town, a man named Daniel took a job as a night security guard at an abandoned hospital slated for demolition. The building stood alone at the edge of town, its windows boarded, its halls frozen in time. Locals avoided it, sharing rumors of screams heard after midnight and lights that turned on without electricity. Daniel laughed at those stories. He needed the money more than he feared old legends. On his 3rd night, the silence inside the hospital became heavy, pressing against his ears. At 2:40 a.m., his radio hissed with static, then a sound that resembled a cough, dry and painful. He told himself it was interference. But when the lights in the east wing flickered on, his confidence began to crack. That wing had no power. As he walked toward it, each step echoed too loudly, and the air grew unnaturally cold. The smell of smoke filled his lungs, thick and bitter, like something burning just out of sight. Then he heard footsteps behind him, slow, dragging, as if someone were struggling to walk. His heart raced. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to escape, to never look back. But something inside him refused. He stopped. He turned round. At the far end of the hallway stood a dark figure, tall, shapeless, its presence heavy enough to make his knees tremble. In that moment, fear stripped him bare. There was no bravery left, no disbelief, no arrogance. There was only his breath, his heartbeat, and a sudden realization that life is fragile. He whispered a prayer, not out of habit, but out of honesty. The figure didn't move closer. Instead, it faded, dissolving into the darkness as if it had never been there. The lights snapped off. The silence returned. Daniel walked out of that hospital before sunrise and never returned. He quit the next morning. Later, he said fear didn't break him that night. It showed him who he really was when everything else fell away. Fear has a way of revealing the foundation of your soul. When comfort disappears, when explanations fail, you discover what you truly rely on. In life, fear comes disguised as loss, failure, isolation, or uncertainty. It forces you to confront yourself without distractions. And in those moments, you either crumble under its weight or stand up and realize you are stronger than you ever imagined. In another true story, darkness tested faith in a way that words can barely describe. In a remote mountain village, a woman named Aisha took the same narrow path home every evening after work. One winter night, a sudden snowstorm swallowed the trail. The wind howled like something alive, erasing footprints within seconds. As she struggled forward, she heard voices calling her name from the trees, gentle at first, familiar, comforting. They promised warmth, safety, rest. Every step toward those voices felt easier than the fight against the storm. But something deep inside her warned her that following them meant never returning. Her hands shook as she spoke a prayer out loud, her voice barely audible over the wind. She kept walking straight, even when her legs burned and her lungs screamed for air. The voices grew angry, mocking her, then suddenly stopped. Hours later, she collapsed at the edge of her village, alive. She would later learn that others who followed those voices were never found. The darkness did not destroy her faith. It demanded proof of it, and she gave it everything she had. Silence, too, can be terrifying. In a quiet suburban neighborhood, a family experienced something they struggled to explain. Every night at exactly 3 a.m., the house fell into a silence so deep it felt unnatural. No insects outside, no distant cars. Even the hum of electricity seemed to vanish. The first few nights, they ignored it. Then one night, the silence was shattered by a loud knock coming from inside a locked storage room. Panic flooded the house. The father checked every door and window. Everything was sealed. The knocking stopped as suddenly as it began. The family couldn't sleep after that. Their instincts screamed danger. They left the house the next day. Days later, engineers discovered severe structural damage hidden within the walls. The house was at risk of collapsing. Whether the knocking was something paranormal or simply a warning manifested through fear, one thing was clear: silence had spoken when words could not. Fear didn't come to hurt them. It came to save them. Courage is often misunderstood. People think courage means being unafraid. But true courage is acting while fear is alive and screaming inside you. A hiker once shared a true story of being followed through dense woods after sunset. The forest grew darker with every step, the trail barely visible. Behind him, he heard footsteps that matched his pace perfectly. When he stopped, they stopped. When he walked, they walked. Terror clawed at his chest. He wanted to run, but he forced himself to breathe slowly, to walk steadily, to speak aloud with confidence he didn't feel. He reminded himself that panic would only make him weak. After nearly an hour, the footsteps faded. Whatever had followed him did not pursue further. He made it out of the woods, shaken but alive. Courage did not erase his fear. It prevented fear from controlling him. Some places carry the weight of the past, and that weight does not disappear easily. In an old boarding school converted into a hostel, guests repeatedly reported seeing a small child standing at the end of the hallway late at night. The child never spoke, never moved closer, just stood there, watching. Staff dismissed the claims until records revealed that decades earlier, a student had died alone in that very hallway after falling ill during the night. One guest described feeling overwhelming sadness rather than fear when seeing the child. The experience reminded everyone that unresolved pain leaves traces. Horror is not always about evil. Sometimes it is about sorrow that was never healed. Survival is not always about strength. Sometimes it is about stubborn refusal to give up. A woman once found herself trapped overnight in a broken elevator between floors. Hours passed. Her phone battery died. The air grew stale. Exhaustion crept in. She later said she heard a voice telling her to sleep, to stop fighting, to let go. Whether it was her mind or something else, she didn't know, but she focused on breathing, counting each breath, reminding herself that rescue could come at any moment. When help finally arrived, she was barely conscious, but alive. Survival began with the decision not to surrender, even when everything inside her begged for rest. Fear often lies. It tells you that you are weak, that you are alone, that you cannot endure. In a true sleep paralysis account, a man woke unable to move, a dark shadow pressing down on his chest, whispering that he was powerless. Panic flooded his body. He couldn't scream, he couldn't move. All he could do was think. He forced himself to pray silently. The shadow vanished instantly. When he finally regained control, tears streamed down his face. He realized later that fear had tried to convince him of a lie. The moment he resisted, it lost its grip. Even in the darkest stories, light exists somewhere. In a village folklore passed down for generations, travelers spoke of a road haunted by something that fed on fear. Those who panicked were chased until they collapsed. Those who walked calmly, holding on to hope, always made it through. The darkness was real, but so was the strength inside those who refused to let fear rule them. These 4 scary true horror stories are not meant to leave you trembling without purpose. They are reminders that fear is not the end of the story. It is the moment where truth appears. You have faced nights you thought would break you, and you are still here. Let these stories remind you that courage can exist alongside fear, that faith can survive the darkest tests, and that even when the shadows feel close, you are never truly alone. May you walk through your fears with strength in your heart, light in your path, and peace in your soul, trusting that you are protected, guided, and watched over, even in the darkest hours, and that every night you survive is proof that something greater is carrying you forward, step by step, breath by breath, into another morning, where fear has lost, and you are still standing.